Hi, my name is Gladys and I'm from Team Indonesia. My fellow team members are Aisha, Xianghong, Raida, and Stephanie. Our chosen author from Indonesia is Andrea Hirata. He was born on October the 24th, 1967, in Belitung Island, a small island to the east of Sumatra. Andrea had his name changed 7 times. His father had originally given him Muslim names such as Muhammad and Ahmad when he was a child. However, because he was always sick and felt unworthy to carry such holy names, he had his name changed repeatedly until he came across the Italian name Andrea while he was reading the newspaper. His mother chose Hirata for him because if the word Hirata was repeated quickly enough, it resembles Ahirat, which means to do good deeds. Coincidentally, Hirata in Japanese means a large paddy field, to which he felt was a suitable name for a boy growing up in the village. His education, he studied economics at the University of Indonesia. Subsequently, he was awarded a scholarship to study masters at the University of Paris, graduated with a Masters of Science in International Business from UK's Sheffield Hallam University in 2002. Belitung Island is rich in tin and produces much of the tin consumed globally. While the families of tin businesses lived in an enclosed community with their own fenced villas and school, Andrea grew up in a poor neighborhood near the tin mining businesses. It is known that Andrea worked as a financial analyst for PT Telkom for 12 years. However, specific dates regarding his work as a financial analyst are not given. But if we were to assume that he worked for PT Telkom after he graduated from the UK in 2002, and 12 years later would put him in 2014 when he left his full-time job. Andrea was not a big reader of novels and had no plans to be a writer when he was young. But he was inspired to try writing a book after he volunteered to help rebuild Banda Aceh after the 2004 tsunami, where he saw, among others, many children who lost their teachers, and that's when he remembered an old promise to his teacher that he would try to write a book, because books were very precious to them back then. Andrea is a strong believer of education. He says that the worst consequence of poverty is a poor child with a lack of confidence and believes that the problem can be solved by education, especially for poor communities. The impact of education can be seen on Belitung Island today, where there are better living standards, better public service, better quality of learning, better reading interests, as more and more children and young adults are getting educated. Compared to the situation in the early 80s, there have been much more progress, and Andrea believes that that's one of the results of education. Andrea Hirata Museum of Words was founded in early 2010 and officially opened to the public in 2012. Andrea Hirata Museum of Words is Indonesia's first and only literature museum. Initiated and established by Andrea Hirata, the purpose of the museum is to encourage reading interest among young people and to support the Belitung tourism industry. The museum took the concept as a replica of the Muhammadiyah Gantong Elementary School, which was a central setting of the story that Andrea attended as a child. Today, the museum is located not far from the original elementary school which Andrea had attended. The construction of the museum is to fulfill a promise that Andrea made when he received profits from the novel. He once stated that he would allocate part of the profits from the novel to build something that would have lasting educational value for Belitung. The inspiration to establish the Museum of Words came when Andrea visited the Mark Twain Boyhood Home and Museum in Hannibal, Missouri, where he attended the University of Iowa on a scholarship to study literature for 7 months. Next, we have the publishing industry in Indonesia. According to statistics from the 2021 CIA World Factbook, Indonesia has a population of 275 million, of which 40.6% of the population is less than 24 years old, and with a median age of 31 years. This rather young population points to demand for children and young adult books. The Indonesian publishing industry has an annual net revenue of 466 million US dollars, and that's in 2013. and they publish around 40,000 books yearly. About 40 to 50% of all published titles are translations, and they're mostly from English, Arabic, Chinese, Korean, or Japanese. This statistics includes novel, children's book, management, self-help, and social science. The Indonesian Book Publishers Association estimated there are around 1,500 publishers, but the industry is dominated by a few large players including Gramedia, Mizam, Agromedia, Ilanga, and Penabar. Gramedia, by the way, also owns the largest bookstore chain with more than 100 outlets across the country. Out of the books being published, children's books and school curriculum books makes up more than 30% of book sales. This is followed by 12.6% for fiction and literature, and 39% for other categories such as business, self-help, cooking, agriculture, and computing. Indonesia, unfortunately, does not have a good distribution network, and therefore selling books through fairs continues to be an important channel in addition to bookstores and the internet. Therefore, book fairs are held in Jakarta and other major cities such as Surabaya, Yogyakarta, Bandung, and Semarang. Ebook sales are small, only about 2% of total publishing, but as Indonesia's relatively young population is highly active on social media, forming the third largest Facebook and Twitter community worldwide with 63 million social media users, and that's in 2013, this number is expected to increase. Now I hand over to Aisha for the next part.
Thanks, Gladys, for introducing our selected author, Andrea Hirata. I'm Aisha, and I'll continue with part 2 of this presentation. I'll first talk about some of Hirata's works. He has actually written about 10 novels in total, but in the interest of time, we'll touch on 3 titles: Laskar Pelangi or Rainbow Troops, Ayah, which means father, and Orang-Orang Biasa, which means ordinary people. We'll also share why the team chose this author and why we think his works deserve an international audience. So let's first start with Hirata's most popular and well-known novel, The Rainbow Troops. It was first published in Bahasa Indonesia in 2005 and is loosely based on Hirata's own childhood. Although it's classified as adult fiction, it's told from the perspective of a 6-year-old boy called Ikal, who lives in Belitung, where the author himself was born. Because it's written from a young boy's perspective, the language used for the English version is pretty simple and easy to understand for children and teens. At times, the writing feels a little unpolished and raw, but I guess it works because it's supposed to be a young boy's account. Just for your info, the classroom picture in this slide is similar to the rundown school that Ikal and his friends attend, which is run by the Islamic Muhammadiyah organization. In terms of storyline, the book is about how 10 primary school children who come from poor families go through trials and tribulations just to get a shot at education. So for them to even get an education is itself considered a miracle. A theme in this book, and also a focus of the author in his other books, is the importance of education in securing a better future. Just to give a sense of what the author's writing is like, I've included a quote from the book. So now let's move on to Laskar Pelangi's success and popularity. Laskar Pelangi or Rainbow Troops is the only work from Hirata that has been translated into English, and it sold a record-breaking 5 million copies and counting. As of 2013, it has been translated into 21 languages, including Turkish, Korean, German, and Chinese. It's also available in 87 countries. The novel has been adapted into a movie, which is one of the highest grossing films in Indonesian box office history. It has also won several awards and was screened at international film festivals. It was even turned into a musical and a 15-episode TV series. Aside from Rainbow Troops, Hirata's works also include Ayah, which was published in 2015. Before this novel, Hirata had written mostly from a first-person perspective. It's actually about a stepfather's love for his stepson, despite not being biologically related to the boy. Orang-Orang Biasa was published in 2019. It's about 10 ordinary people who have been marginalized from society. One of them has a daughter who wants to be a doctor, but because she was unable to afford fees to get into medical schools, these 10 ordinary people would stoop to anything to help her achieve her dreams, including criminal things. Both these novels are for adults and are only available in Bahasa Indonesia. As for why we chose this author, when we did our research online and when we asked some of our Indonesian friends, Hirata's name, or rather the Rainbow Troops, came up most often. He's one of the most well-known and prominent authors in Indonesia. Honestly speaking, we had quite a tough time looking for translated Indonesian works, and the only one that I could find in English in our public libraries was Hirata's Rainbow Troops. I think that in itself says quite a bit. Secondly, you can't ignore the fact that he's Indonesia's best-selling author of all time. His works have won literary awards and managed to somehow break into the international market. Thirdly, he didn't just write books. He has influence in his hometown. For example, earlier on, Gladys mentioned that he started Indonesia's first museum of words on Belitung. So he put Belitung on the map. Also, his novels led to increased tourism in Belitung Island. Fourth, the social message in his stories about the importance of education also resulted in changes to real-life situation. In his own words during an interview, the situation has improved, referring to his own home country, and students are able to get scholarships more easily. Lastly, we love a rags to riches story. Although he wrote fiction, his life itself proved to be quite the inspiration. As Gladys mentioned earlier, this was a guy who grew up in Belitung and against all odds, somehow made it. He said in an interview, I want needy children to realize that if I can do it, then they can do it too. These are some reasons why we think his works deserve an international audience. Firstly, we think if readers want an inside view of Indonesia from a local who lived it, his works are actually very culturally grounded. Secondly, the author himself mentioned that he always picks simple themes for his novels. This includes universal themes like the rich-poor divide, coming-of-age stories, and issues related to family, friendship, and education, which is his main focus. These simple themes can be enjoyed by everyone, not just Indonesian readers. Thirdly, Hirata is a writer with a mission and a strong social message. He strongly believes in inspiring others to make positive changes. And we think this drive for social change and the desire to inspire children who are not well off deserve an international audience. Lastly, considering how underexposed Indonesian literature is to the rest of the world, his works could add to the diversity of the literary scene. This can then encourage other Indonesian voices to go international as well. At this point of the presentation, I think it's best to hear from the author himself. So I will play short snippets of an interview he did last year with students of Cambridge University Technology and Enterprise Club.
It's important to have a heavy subject like, let's say, the killing of John F. Kennedy. But it's also okay to tell a story about a student cycling from his home village to a school 40 kilometers, 80 kilometers in total every day. For a young girl, 15 years old, starting a school, Laskar Pelangi. I'm focused myself on the subjects of education, and I try to tell a story about forgotten teachers, forgotten students. Now I come to a belief that I do not write only what I want to write, but I must write what I have to write for the justice of education, especially for poor Indonesian students.
We've come to the last slide of our presentation. These questions are just to kick off discussion on the discussion board later. If you guys have read other Indonesian works that are suitable for children or teens, please also do share them in the discussion board. That's all we have for you this week. Thank you for your time. See you.